said it was nothing, just lights in the trees, a trick of the frost, a ghost on the breeze. But I saw a mirror older than me, staring through time like it wanted to speak. The forest went silent, the world held its breath. Something was watching beyond life and death. We stepped through the green, boots breaking the seal, not chasing a light, but something too real. I came back with salt on my skin, my mind split wide where the storm got in. They call it a test, but I know the deal. History blinks beneath the green veil.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 6, The Convergence Vector. I'm here with John Burrows and Chris DePerno again. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing awesome.
John, hanging in there? I mean, there's a lot going on. We'll talk about that when we do our preview review show. But right now, really, this is about Chapter 6. And I'm just going to get right to it so we can all discuss a little about it afterwards. So let's just get right to it. This is Chapter 6, The Convergence Vector. I hope everybody enjoys it, so here we go.
The forest had called them again. Chapter 5 left us with the signal stirring once more. Jack Barrett awoken by something older than memory and deeper than time itself. He had sensed it from the start, but now the phenomenon was no longer content with echoes. It wanted presence, and it had marked them. Jack wasn't the only one pulled back. Sergeant B had also begun to remember, pieces fractured by chemical veiling, stitched together by something he couldn't name. The memory blocks were failing, and the phenomenon knew it. During the second night, while the base slept under stars veiled in frost, Sergeant B had encountered the anomaly. Lights that weren't lights, sounds that bypassed the ears. A question that embedded itself in his spine: who are you? But neither man was given time to process what had happened. Their return to duty was rapid, their minds altered, their memories surgically reduced. Only Pike knew why. Dr. Christopher Pike had monitored every burst, every pulse, every irregularity. Jack's neurological data didn't just spike, it harmonized. And when the signal flared again, Pike knew it wasn't done. That's why he stayed close. Not as a handler, but as a witness. Now Chapter 6 begins. The timeline fractures again. A surveillance team is dispatched. The phenomenon begins to show signs of agency. Jack and Sergeant B stand at the edge of a second encounter, and this time, others are watching. The question is no longer what they'll see. The question is, who will return?
In the forest deep where silence breaks, time unwinds and memory wakes. The lights return like ghostly drums, calling back the ones it summons. Static hums beneath the skin. The air folds in and breathes again. Footsteps vanish in the frost. Two men found, but one is lost. The threshold breeze and we walk through, past the veil of what we knew. Signals pulse from underground, where the old lies are unbound. Truth was never far from reach, it lived beneath the shattered breach. time pause. Their ranks held fast by unseen laws. A beam descends without a sound. Jack dissolves, then isn't found. Sergeant B still stands in trance, as if he's heard the forest chant. Pike records, Voss turns pale. Hunter Green begins the tale. It's already begun. It never ended. The echo's not from outer space. It's what we've always defended. The threshold breathes and time stands still. The forest bends to unseen will. Witnesses now altered men, trying to unsee what they saw then. But the veil won't hold for long. The signals learned our song. So write it down and seal the file. Swear your oath and fake the smile. But Jack has crossed and B still dreams of lights that burn and silence screams. One truth remains behind all scenes. The threshold breathes, and it remembers.
The congressional hearing resumed promptly at 10 a.m. The air inside the vault was colder and more sterile than before. Jack Barrett sat forward once again. Beside him, Dr. Elias Voss adjusted his glasses. The chairman cleared his throat. Dr. Voss, let's return to your prior testimony. You indicated that the Rendlesham encounter had measurable effects on both perception and time. Voss nodded. Yes, that's correct. And you've previously stated that the effects align with phenomena outlined in the UK's Project Condon? They do. Specifically the sections relating to charged plasmas affecting neurological function and temporal coherence in observers. Jack's brainwave patterns. They were altered, not randomly, but in patterned, harmonized response. One of the junior committee members interjected, how much of our current technology traces back to what was learned that night? Voss hesitated. Much of it, he said. Signal conditioning, predictive modeling, inertial dampening prototypes. Even some of the hardware involved in the Nimitz Tic Tac incident had fingerprints that began in East Anglia. Another member leaned forward. Are you saying Rendlesham led to the Tic Tac? In part. The simulation parameters developed through Echo Protocol were later used in Navy training exercises. But something interacted with those parameters in real time. We didn't just simulate contact, we provoked it. RAF Woodbridge, East Gate Sector. Jack Barrett and Sergeant B stood at the edge of the tree line, silent as mist curled like vaporous fingers between the pines. Their boots crunched softly in the frost, but neither moved further. Jack broke the silence. You feel that? Sergeant B nodded slowly, like a tide under the skin. Above them, the sky pulsed, red, then violet, like it was breathing. A sphere hovered to the south, its form indistinct but steady. On the horizon, two more lights moved unnaturally, shifting direction without inertia. The time was 3:15 hours. Inside the security control room, Christopher Pike adjusted the dials on a Cold War-era trans-spectral monitor. He'd been reassigned, quietly, by the CIA to oversee temporal field studies, something he'd once believed was pure theory. Now, he watched the screens stutter. "We have a pulse," he said. A coded signal from underground had activated. Across the compound, a specially assigned NSA team worked to mask electronic signatures. Radio bands were scrambled, surveillance feeds rerouted. The goal, keep the Russians blind. But they weren't. Intelligence had confirmed a Soviet frog team had been dispatched days earlier. Their target, recover what they believed to be a downed satellite. A Zenit series spy payload that had never landed. What they didn't know was that it had been vaporized mid-descent by a classified radar harmonic field, one designed by the same minds behind Operation Echo Protocol. The cover story had already been staged. The wing commander was briefed in vague terms: routine exercise, possible foreign intrusion, a need to test readiness. If the lights returned, if movement was seen, he would send men. That was all Pike needed. The forest activation. The 5-man Air Force team dispatched by the wing commander consisted of Captain Devin Haynes, Technical Sergeant Luis Moreno, Senior Airman Trent Vickers, Airman First Class Neil Avery, Lieutenant Colonel Ross Denning, Team Lead. As they stepped into the tree line, they moved cautiously, night vision scopes sweeping the shadows. Vickers paused first. "Something's wrong with the air," he said. "It's heavy." Moreno checked his Geiger counter. "We've got minor fluctuations." Then it happened. A pulse. Barrett whispered, "You feel that?" Sergeant B nodded slowly, like a tide, under the skin. They stepped forward. The field shimmered. Inside the NSA forward ops van, analysts were already recording tachyon differentials. One voice crackled over a secure channel. "They've entered phase lock. The Russians are turning back." Outside the forest perimeter, a small Soviet recon team, disguised as NATO personnel, were taken into custody by British and U.S. intelligence assets. The mist shimmered and bent toward Jack and Sergeant B. A cone of light enveloped the two men as the time dilation bubble formed. Jack turned briefly, his eyes glowing faintly, and then, as if pulled by invisible strings, he vanished. No flash, no sound, just gone. Sergeant B stumbled backward, collapsing to one knee. "Jack!" he shouted. But there was no answer. Avery's voice trembled. "Did you see that? He just phased out." Captain Haynes immediately called for containment, but communications were distorted. Back at the command trailer, Pike stood frozen. "They saw it," he muttered. Dr. Elias Voss looked pale. "The field pulled him. We thought it was ambient. It's targeted." Hunter Green entered the room, face like stone. "Lock it down," he ordered. "They saw too much." "Those men are witnesses," Pike argued. "Then make them assets," Hunter Green said. "Or ghosts." Debrief room Echo. 1 hour later. Jack was still missing. The 5-man team was contained along with Sergeant B. Lieutenant Colonel Ross Denning and the rest of the recon team sat in silence. In front of them, Dr. Voss deconstructed the telemetry data on a glowing screen. "This isn't random," he said. Barrett's interaction triggered a feedback loop. The structure responded to him. The Soviets were after a satellite. We were after what came after. Pike added, "They didn't just witness a phenomenon, they witnessed the next step in its evolution." Hunter Green crossed his arms. "From this point forward, I'm taking lead. Lock down the logs. Debrief these men separately. No record leaves this facility." He turned toward Voss and Pike. "We don't have time for caution anymore. The phenomenon made its move." Voss whispered, "And Jack Barrett's no longer in our timeline." Hunter Green's voice dropped. "Then we'd better find out where he is." They had been told to observe, to record, to stay just far enough back. But distance meant nothing in the Rendlesham anomaly. The 5-man Air Force surveillance team, Major Ethan Rourke, Captain Dylan Sharp, First Lieutenant Kai Soto, Technical Sergeant Brennan Vale, and Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Holden, had witnessed something no training could prepare them for. From the frostbitten tree line, they saw Sergeant B immobilized mid-sentence, his body caught between motion and stillness. They saw Jack Barrett move forward, then disappear, not like a man cloaked, but like a man erased. Not gone. Absorbed. Holden tried to radio command. Static. Sharp attempted visual lock. No response. And then came the pulse. Bright, fluid, folding light around absence. Madge Rourke dropped to his knees, unable to breathe. Vale whispered, "It's seeing us." When the light finally collapsed, only Sergeant B remained, barely coherent. Jack was gone. The trees no longer whispered. They echoed. Back at command, Dr. Voss and Pike scrambled for an explanation that could fit inside a classified briefing. They couldn't find one. CIA analyst Christopher Hunter Green made the call. From now on, he would lead. The timeline was collapsing, and the cover story was no longer optional. It was mandatory. Jack Barrett has crossed the veil. In Chapter 7, we enter the Echo Interior, a dimensional overlay where Jack awakens not in space, but in time. His body is present, but his mind is untethered. He hears voices, some human, some not. He sees future versions of himself, and he isn't alone. Back on Earth, the Langley team prepares for containment. Sergeant B begins to change, and the first signal from deep beneath Capel Green transmits back. Its message is not a warning. It's a countdown.
Through the silence of time, I walked alone. But the stars knew my name in undertone. From Rendlesham woods to Saturn skies, I carried the echo, I lived the lie. It wasn't the end, it was unfolding. Not contact made, but truth beholding. Beyond the war, beyond the flame, we weren't just shadows, we became the song inside the lattice, carved in light, born from the static. We became.
All right, gentlemen. We just seen this Chapter 6, and I gotta say, here we go. This is where it looks like it's really going to get intense. Not like it hasn't already, but now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this whole book series. The chapter series. I'll go to Chris first. Chris, what is your impressions about Chapter 6 and the information contained in it?
Well, as you know, we're starting to learn more about the Tic Tac and what the people say. We're learning more about how I believe that John became a conduit, because both sides were expecting some stuff to happen. And so Chapter 6 draws you into that, brings you in and says, hey, we're meshing together. We're getting information from the outside entity, and both are being brought together. And John is that kind of connection to the whole thing. So you have that doing, because Chapter 5 was basically telling all about the signal. The signal was amazing, so you get an idea. But the other thing is, in chapter, we found out there's another character that has an effect during that. And we talk about that airman that was affected. So you get not only John's position on what's happening to him, how he's being drawn to this, how others are being drawn to this, but it really starts rounding itself out to where you're saying to yourself, wow, there is so much more to this than I expected. I was absolutely shocked with it.
The thing, I think you're referring to the character Sergeant B, if I'm correct, Chris?
Sergeant Bass or Sergeant B, one of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing to see that. And then I don't want to give too much away, but as we talk about John's, I don't want to say disappearance, John's absence during the thing, that things start to happen. But I think what I like about this is that you're really starting to see that things are going on that John talks about, that we're starting to see people talk about in Congress in some respects. And I think that's so important, because I think John's on such a righteous trail for it.
I will say this. When I watched it, because again, I had to watch it twice, because I always do, because I've seen it prior to this, and this was great to see it again to refresh the memory. First of all, is how they tried to contain it. And it looked like they really didn't have control of the situation when it was going on.
Not at all.
And they're trying to scramble to put a lid on it. That's the one. And John, it also brings up about the Russians. Were the Russians aware? Because they looked like they were more focused on the retrieval of the Soviet satellite. If I'm mistaken, you can correct me. But did they realize as well that something else was going on here? And they were like, what the heck is going on? Like,
well, did you miss then why the satellite was brought down?
Well, I saw that part. I saw that.
But the satellite was monitoring the area for the convergence.
I understand that. But again, did they know so they knew about this convergence? They knew about this project? They knew about this, that they were going to
It was a spy satellite. Yeah.
Right. But they didn't know the side effects, the ramifications of what was going to actually happen with the time dilation bubble that encompassed.
But that's what they were doing. They were spying on what they were working on there at the time. And we knew that, and we knew that what they were gathering was going to they had to bring the satellite down to keep it from the Russians understanding better what was going on, to include the fact that they realized what was created out there.
I know there's a lot coming up in the next chapters, but I just want to ask this question. Do you know how long you were in that time dilation bubble? Just I may have asked this question in the past, but do you know how much time passed in your experience in there? Also, did time pass differently in that time dilation that was different from the actual time that passed in reality when you came to yourself, you came to it and you're like, oh my God, what was that?
Remember, I was in some other time zone. So when I came back to where I was, I don't remember what happened where I was before or how long I was gone. It's I'm just going.
John, one of the things though is that I think this chapter we start to see part of your memory coming back, that although they don't want your memory to come back, but it does start coming back.
But that's the signal. That's the signal.
Right, but remember, guys, I keep going back to Interstellar. Don't you remember when they were on the planet and the ship that was orbiting above the planet, when they got up there, they thought they were only down there for days, and when they got back up, the guy had been up there, I don't know, was it a couple years or 3 years or something like that? So when you go and you start modulating like that, different things start to happen. So, and it appears that they wanted Barrett not to remember what happened in the future or where he went more than what happened in the present. So,
which I'm really interested to see what the next chapter where this goes. Oh my gosh, Chris! Actually, we're already closing out on time. Any final thoughts before we?
No, I would just tell the people that you got to stick with this thing, because as you go from chapter to chapter, it opens up such another different doorway to the experience of Barrett, Jack Barrett, or John, whichever you want to pick. But it really tells you how the frame of what we're seeing in real life, how it's turning. We all started turning about, these are all mechanical things, and these are, extraterrestrials and stuff. But John's spin is now moving a little bit away from that and talking about consciousness, energy, plasma,
NHI.
And the signal. And I thought the signal, folks, I really think that you should watch the chapter on the signal more than once, because there's a lot of information in that chapter that really tells, that what direction we're going in.
Also, when they find, I can't imagine what they were going through. Where is John, or Jack in this case?
Yeah.
Where is he?
Where'd he go?
Do how do we deal with this situation? And then I'm doing a prediction here. When he reemerges, it's like, wow, we've definitely got to
and that's why I say I think John was a conduit, because I think people on the base had one set of schedule that they wanted to do, but the entity, the energy, the signal, whatever way you want to call it, had another agenda. And John was connecting the two. And I think and I could be wrong, but I think you start to see a little bit of battling for John's possession in some of this.
John, closing thoughts?
Just stay tuned, folks. It only gets better by the week.
And I want to also say thank you to Keith Kearlock for all the things that he's done involved in this project. You can definitely go check out his website right there, the music associated, everything else, and also
Great music.
This is another place you can go visit, the YouTube at Rose City Sound Project. So we'll see everybody next week for Chapter 7. Stay tuned, because I'm telling you, it's crunch time. This is where you're really getting to the meat and potatoes of what's going on.
You sure do.
In this story. So for John Burrows, Christopher, and myself, we'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you tune in next week for another episode of The Green Veil. We'll see you all next week.